Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Arise News. Of course, it's time to take a look at what's making the headlines in the papers this morning. We're joined by Kola Lakpini, an international human rights lawyer, was joining me from the U.S. state of California. Thank you, Kola. It's good to see you. And good morning from this side of the world. But let's get straight to take a look at the papers this morning. Let's begin with this day of record. If you can pull that up right away as we take a look at what this day has to say. And he put it this way: Tinubu to Nigerians, re-elect me for more work. Reforms in first 2 years. Another story there: Labour Party, NDC, ADC, PDP factions hold a primaries. You could take a look at another story now. Soaring food energy costs push inflation to 15.69%. We're back again to this day, but let me take a similar story from other newspaper. Let's look at The Guardian now has this similar story, of course. Tinubu asking Nigerians to re-elect him, but The Guardian has this to say: Tinubu in Kigali, reforms already stabilizing Nigeria's economy. And President Tinubu's comment in Kigali, of course, according to analysts, are aimed at the international investment audience, perhaps not necessarily to Nigerians. It's the first time we're seeing a Nigerian president in this manner. But let me quickly look at some other story quickly there on the front page of The Guardian. If you can pull that up, of course, we have that right away. And it has this to say: The Guardian has this to say that reforms already stabilizing Nigeria's economy. And he described these, describe subsidy removal, tax reforms as necessary sacrifice. Nigeria must support local industries, deepen regional compensation. And that's President Tinubu speaking in Rwanda, Kigali, at the Africa CEO Forum. Let's bring in Kola Lakpini now as we take a look at some of these interesting stories. Thank you for joining us, Kola. Are you there? Now, let me begin from, of course, this day newspaper, where it talks about there's a need to re-elect him, that Nigerians should trust him for re-election. And the first 2 years, of course, while he was speaking in Kigali, he also highlighted the importance of the impact of his reforms on Nigeria. But again, there's one story or one angle I also like to talk about. Well, we saw the president. I don't know if you watched that interview. He was so coordinated, so coherent, and so on point. If you look at the conversation between the presenter and of course him there, you will discover that the president, for the first time, was able to answer all the questions put to him. And the question is, why is the president not talking to Nigerians using the local media? That's another big question. But let's begin now from the first, a headline where it talks about he needs a re-election, that Nigerians should trust him. The first 2 years was already, just for reform's sake, and perhaps in the second term he'll be able to consolidate on those reforms. Where do you start?
Well, if we take it from him not speaking to the press in Nigeria, or not appearing as friendly or as relaxed to the press in Nigeria, I think it's a typical Nigerian style where our leaders, kind of snob. Once they get into power, they kind of just snob the local scene, and they become inaccessible, etc. And they try to put their best foot ahead when they're at international fora. I don't see any big deal in the interview which he has done in Kigali. We need more of these at home, especially so he's able to uh, get across his views properly to the Nigerian people. Now he's asking that he be given more years he should be re-elected, etc. That's entirely up to the people of Nigeria. If we have free and fair elections, let the best man win. He will test his popularity at the polls. That's uh, that's all I'll say. He doesn't need to beg Nigerians. Let his work speak for him.
Let us work as
Um, Tinubu does not need to beg voters for their vote in 2027. Tinubu became Nigeria's president after the 2023 general elections. His administration came into power with promises of economic reforms, national development, and renewed hope for Nigerians. Since assuming office, the government has introduced policies such as fuel subsidy removal, exchange rate reforms. While supporters argue that these policies are necessary for long-term economic growth, many citizens have complained about hardship, inflation, unemployment, and the rising cost of living. The statement that President Tinubu does not need to beg voters can be interpreted in different ways. Some political analysts believe it means that leadership should focus on performance rather than emotional appeals or political propaganda. According to this review, if a government performs effectively and delivers on its promises, citizens will naturally support it during elections. In a democracy, voters are expected to assess leaders based on results, including economic stability, security, infrastructure, healthcare, and education. So, what do you think about this? To me, I don't think Mr. President needs to beg for anybody's vote because his work should have served as campaign itself. And by and uh, by allowing people to voice their mind to whatever they are feeling without anybody questioning anybody's feeling. Do we think Mr. President has actually performed well? Politicians must constantly engage citizens. We know that. Listen to people concerned and seek their trust and support. In this sense, begging voters may not mean pleading desperately for votes, but rather showing respect, empathy, and responsibility toward the electorate. Nigerian voters today are more politically aware and expect leaders to connect with their daily struggles. And statement reflect the changing nature of Nigerian politics. In the past, politicians often rely heavily on campaign promises, political loyalty, and ethic, regional support. But many citizens demand good governance, transparency, and measurable development. Voters increasingly judge leaders by their achievements rather than political rhetoric alone. Therefore, whether President Tinubu needs to beg voters or not or not may ultimately depend on his administration's performance before the next election cycle. In conclusion, the this discussion on Arise TV about whether President Tinubu needs to beg voters highlight the importance democratic values in Nigeria. While some believe strong leadership and good governance and good performance are enough to secure public support, others argue that leaders must continuously seek the trust and confidence of citizens through humility and accountability. In any democracy, power of the people remains central, and voters will always have the final decision at the ballot box. Let's contribute our quota. This is Political Brief. I'm Adiola Toba. Thank you.